Are you a passionate business owner or entrepreneur ready to take your message to the world? Do you dream of launching your own podcast but don't know where to start? Introducing my 8-week Start Your Podcast program designed to guide you every step of the way in creating and launching your podcast. In this program, you'll learn the essential skills needed to craft engaging content, record high-quality episodes, and market your podcast effectively to reach your target audience. I will work closely with you, providing personalized guidance and feedback to ensure your podcast stands out in a crowded digital space. But hurry, spots are limited and applications for our upcoming cohorts are closing soon. Don't miss this opportunity to turn your podcast dreams into a reality and launch your podcast this summer. Visit our website, donnaeade.com/apply and apply now to secure your spot in our next cohort. Together, let's make your podcasting vision a success. You're listening to the Mindset and Action Podcast, the place to be to grow and streamline your business. I'm your host, Donna Eade. Let's jump into the show. Your success will be determined by your own confidence and fortitude. Michelle Obama. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I'm so glad to have you here today to have this conversation about confidence. And that quote from Michelle Obama was really enlightening to me, because if that is not a reason to get over our confidence issues, I don't know what is. Our success is determined by our confidence. That is so powerful. So today we are talking about confidence, particularly confidence in podcasting, because this is something that I have seen coming to my vision in the last few months. Is a lot of people who are saying they would love to podcast, but they lack the confidence to do so. So I wanted to touch on some points today to hopefully help those people who are lacking in that confidence, feeling that they can't do it, and put some of those worries to rest and perhaps put you on a path to help you build that confidence so that you can get your message heard. Because one of the reasons that I do what I do is because one of my highest values is helping other people. And the way I like to help other people is to help them amplify the message that they want to share with the world through podcasting. So if I can help you build up your confidence to podcast and then help you create a podcast that you can be proud of, that is like me fulfilling one of my top values in life. So it is really important to me that we kind of get out of our own way in a number of areas. I know I have areas where I lack confidence. Talking is not one of the areas I lack confidence in, not in podcasting at any rate. But if you put me in front of a room full of people, then I would struggle more. And this is something that I've been trying to overcome this year by putting myself out there to do more speaking gigs. One of the things that I learned from somebody, and I cannot remember who it is off the top of my head, but they said they were nervous about public speaking. So what they did to get over it was do more public speaking. And so that is something that kind of stuck with me. So something I'm looking to do more of, because I know that by doing the thing, it's going to help me overcome it. So I've already given you a little hint as to what is to come, but let's jump in to the episode and let's look at how we can build our confidence so that we can start podcasting. So the first thing that I want to bring to your attention when it comes to having the confidence to podcast is that you are the expert. So this actually goes back to a conversation I was having with Catherine and Julie, and I think it was in our episode that we did on Mic Action podcast. So if you want to go over and listen to that, I will link it in the show notes for you, where Catherine was talking about how it has built her confidence to actually do a podcast. And I pointed out to her that, she is the expert in what she talks about. She never stops herself from telling her clients these things. So why, when we're putting it out there in a podcast, suddenly she's getting that imposter syndrome? So you might be that way as well. You might be sitting there thinking, oh, I don't know that people want to listen to me. Like, am I the right person to speak on a national scale about this to people? Like, I don't think I've got the authority to do that. If you serve clients and you have clients that pay you to teach them whatever it is that you do, so for Catherine, it's Pilates and fitness. For Julie, it's nutrition. She is so skilled in her field, understanding testing and supplements and nutrition, like proper nutrition, not putting you on a diet, not Weight Watchers, like really understanding the complexities of foods and how they work, help and heal our bodies. She is a master at that. And therefore, she can speak confidently to her clients about that. And the same with Catherine. They speak very confidently to their clients about that. And whatever it is that you do, I know some nutritionists that listen to this podcast. I know some people who are in finance that listen to this podcast. I know there are people in the fashion world that listen to this podcast. So there is a great wealth of knowledge in the listenership of this podcast. And you share that wealth of knowledge with your clients easily. When they come to you, you're like falling over yourself to help them as much as you possibly can to get them to understand the information that you have and why it will help them. Yet then we think about podcasting and all of a sudden our confidence shrinks. And so I want you to really remember, maybe put it on a post-it somewhere, pop it up where you can see it every day. I am the expert in, and write whatever it is that you do. So you might not be the only expert. You might not be the best expert. We've all got learning to do. I am certainly not the best podcast expert, but I know what I know and I know it well and I can teach it. And therefore, I can confidently speak about it on my podcast to people in person, in groups, to people from a stage. I can do that because I have that ability within me. I know it is there. Now, for me, the confidence of getting up on stage doing it, that is where my imposter syndrome starts to come in and something that I have to fight against. But when it comes to podcasting, it is totally there and I can do it. So we each have our, things where we have to kind of practice and move forward, take baby steps, get ourselves out there so that we can do these things. But the rewards, going back to that quote that Michelle said, the success that comes with that confidence has got to be worth it. So remember, you're the expert. That's number one. Number two, I want you to practice. So, when we were kids, we practiced riding our bikes. How many times did we fall off? I don't even care to count because I don't think I could count the number of times I fell off my bike. It was far too many. A very embarrassing incident going down a hill one day, but we won't talk about that today. But we practiced everything as kids and we didn't mind. We actually wanted to do it. The frustration that you would feel when you didn't get it, you just get back up and go back on it again because you wanted to. And suddenly as we become adults, there's an innate fear that comes with failing. And I don't know where it comes from, but I've seen it in my daughter in this last year with driving a car. She failed her first test and now she's saying she doesn't want to do it at all because she has this whole fear around it and this whole mental block around it because of what she's been through with the instructors and the examiner that she had. So she's got this whole narrative behind her that has paralyzed her when it comes to driving. And I think we do that a lot in business as well. If we fall down, we hurt ourselves, our ego gets bruised, and all of a sudden, I can't do that, backing off it, I don't want to be involved. And I think that happens a lot as adults. We suddenly have this ego, I think, which is a lot of it, that kind of ties us down and gets in our way. So we need to get over that. So before you sort of step out into the world and put something out there for the world, practice. So you can download Audacity for free. I'll link it in the show notes for you. But I know that the PC has a voice recorder. If you type in voice recorder on a PC, I think it will come up. And on the Mac, you've got GarageBand. So those are both free to use. So just open them up, press record and start recording your voice and listening back to it. And I know that's the bit a lot of people find painful, but I want to tell you a little story about sound. None of us like the sound of our own voice when we hear it back. There are very, very few people that will put their hand up and say, do you know what? I could listen to my own voice all day long. Okay? There is a difference between the sound of our voice that we hear in our heads and the sound that comes back from a recording. And because there's a difference, it's jarring for us. And I've spoken about this before, how I've talked about sound quality and how deadening the sound in your room is important, but also trying to get your guests to do the same, because if the sound is too different between you, it can be really jarring for your listener. Well, that's what it is for us with our own voice. We hear it in our head, and we're hearing it probably in a slightly deeper tone, I think, because it's internal. You know, we're internally hearing it. But when you hear it come back from an external source, you're actually hearing what everybody else hears. It's like listening to somebody on the phone, how they will sound different on the phone, and it might take you a while to realize it's them. And then all of a sudden their voice sounds like their voice again, and it sounds absolutely fine. Weird how that happens, right? But it's something that everybody goes through. The thing you have to remember is there are very, very few people in the world that you can't stand the sound of their voice. Like, if I sit here and think about it, like, is there anybody who I can name right now, not that I would, whose voice I cannot stand? Like, oh, it's just jarring. I don't want to hear them speak. And I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. And the thing is your voice is a unique part of who you are. And that is a selling factor. So you might think, oh my God, I hate the sound of my voice, but you might have an accent. And if you know me, you know I love an accent. So you might not like your voice, but I could literally sit and listen to you all day because you've got an accent, and I love to listen to an accent. And other people are the same. You know, if you've got a Newcastle accent or a Welsh accent or a Scottish accent, or, you know, if you've got any accent that is different to the person you're talking to, and there's somebody who really enjoys listening to accents, they're going to really enjoy it whether you like your voice or not. And that it is known that there are accents out there that are preferable. So the Geordie accent is often used in telecommunications because of Ant and Dec have basically made it a really likeable accent. So you might not like your accent, but other people will. And I often get told, oh, Donna, you've got the voice for podcasting, you know, you've got a radio voice. I'm not somebody who particularly likes the sound of my own voice, and I take the compliment, I appreciate it, and I love that. However, we all have our own hang-ups about our voice, so I don't want you to sit there and let your voice stop you. So practice recording and practice listening back to yourself, and not being overly critical over the sound of your voice, but more listening for, am I using a lot of filler words? Is there a better way I could explain that? And look at it that way, rather than focusing on those areas that are out of our control. You can't control the sound of your own voice. You could take voice lessons. There are certain things you can do to change it. But at the end of the day, it makes you uniquely you. And the people who are drawn to you are going to be people who like that about you. So it's one of those unique selling factors about yourself. So please don't sit there thinking, oh, my voice is terrible and I couldn't possibly do a podcast. That's not the case at all. So with that practice, if you want to kind of, you don't know what to say in these practice sessions, just go over to ChatGPT and type in, I would like to do a podcast on a particular area of your specialism, and ask it to do you a 3-point outline for a podcast episode. In fact, I will leave below an AI prompt that you can copy and paste and just add in your details and pop that into ChatGPT. What Chat will then do is give you an outline for a podcast and just record that podcast, whatever it says. So take that outline and then record that podcast. So don't read it word for word, but instead take those points and go, okay, I will have a conversation on record about this topic, and just record it. And just do that and keep doing it, keep listening to it, because the more you practice, the more natural it becomes, the more comfortable you will get. So just practice. And then lastly, I wanted to say your next step, once you've practiced a little bit, if you feel that you need to practice a little bit more, practice a little bit, but then start getting booked for guest slots on podcasts. If you can go and actually sit and have a conversation with a podcast host where the onus is on them to draw out of you what they need for their episode, you haven't got the pressure of thinking about how the episode is going to turn out and what's going to be in, what's going to be out, etc. You have just got to answer the questions. It's more practice for you in being in that more live podcast arena. So you can get some guest spots on podcasts and practice that way. And that also then gives you marketing material to share, to talk about what you do. So it's a great way of practicing and getting something extra out of it as well. Now, a couple of tips for guesting. If you are going to look to get booked on guest slots, you must listen to the podcast and make sure that it is actually relevant for what you do. There is no point in being a VA trying to get yourself booked onto a fitness podcast. That's not going to work. Equally, I'm a business podcast. If you come in and want to talk about Bitcoin or estate agent portfolios, yes, I've had people try and get on my podcast to talk about these things, then you're not getting on my podcast. So make sure that you listen to the podcast so you can analyze who their audience is, find the host on social media, evaluate who it is that they're talking to and what you can offer to their audience before you approach the host for a guest spot. And that will help you be in a better position to position yourself as an expert that can serve their audience. So rather than, I want to come on your podcast because I'm really good at XYZ and I could talk about it all day, I would really like to come on your podcast and talk to your audience about how they can get XYZ done better by following this method that I use. Yeah, so lead with the service, and that is also going to stand you in good stead. So that is it for today, guys. I just wanted to do this episode because I think it's really important that we remember as adults that actually, you know, there's a lot of things that we couldn't do when we were younger and didn't have the confidence to do, but we just got on with it. We practiced it, and we got better at it. And I think that's often why we learn things at school. We're given the opportunity to do music lessons and pick up an instrument and things like that. Is we're at an age where failure doesn't feel like the end of the world, and we're okay to fail and keep going and practice some more. So that is what I would like you to take away from today's lesson. Remember that younger you that, you know, fell over in the roller skates and got up and still got back in them and went again. The person who fell off the bike and so many times, had a really bad bike accident and still got up and rode their bike. You know, we can do hard things. We proved it all our childhood and we can do it as adults as well. So get out of your own way. Start building that confidence, start practicing. Remember, you are the expert in your field and people need to hear your message. If you are confident in telling your clients these things, you can be confident telling your podcast audience these things. Okay, guys, that is it for me this week. Don't forget, if you do want to get started with your podcast, I have 2 cohorts of the podcast program starting on the 13th and 20th of May. So if you want to get in on either of those cohorts, it's a maximum of 6 people on each cohort. I will walk you through step by step of the way of creating your podcast, and you can be doing all this practice in the background before you start actually doing your own episodes. So come and join me for that, donnaeade.com/apply. I have got a special offer on for people who are booking on in the next couple of weeks. So if you head over to that link, you will find out what that special offer is, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now. Don't forget to hit those stars and leave a review of the podcast where you listen if you found value in what you heard today. It's a free way you can help the podcast reach more people just like you.